Hello, my name is Amy Ratcliffe, and in this video I'll be sharing my research that investigated the differences in process between producing oneself and producing others. The study used two songs with contrasting producer-artist relationships as case studies. The songs are Blue World, which was written and produced by myself, and Do It, which was written by Nicole Clarke and produced by me. I used an inductive, qualitative approach for this study. I used an autoethnographic approach in the form of detailed diary entries, which provided depth. Alongside this, I used ethnographic research in the form of video recordings, photographs, and interviews with the participants. I conducted a thematic analysis on my data which produced three key differences between the production processes: power structure, communication, and comfort. Starting with power structures, I identified two critical incidences which showed the differences in the power structures. The first was spatial arrangements. Even though slight, the space in which music creation was taking place changed between the two production processes. When working with both Nicole and the session musicians, our seating arrangement subconsciously showed our roles within the project. I typically sat in the sweet spot, showing my authority regarding the sound quality. Nicole typically sat behind me, showing her authority with respect to the final decisions, but not necessarily about the sound quality or instructing the musicians. The session musicians sat next to the patch bay for functionality and were in the control room to show that they had authority in respects to which takes to be used. On the other hand, when working with the session musicians alone, the session musicians and I were sat closer to each other and would share the sweet spot. This allowed for greater mutual dialogue as the creative hierarchy had become more collaborative. The second critical incident was the creative hierarchy within collaboration. The following clips show that when working with Nicole, the creative decisions the session musician and I created were always relayed to Nicole, versus when working on my song, there was more discussion between myself and the session musicians, so that often present more ideas.
How kind of jazzy do you sort of want to get? It's like
What do you think?
this one.
You think this one? I think so too. Although only slight, when working with an artist as well as a separate producer, this extra hierarchical figure reduced the creative influence that the session musician had. When working as an artist-producer, there appeared to be more equality regarding creative influence on the track, yet I still had the final decision. The next theme I found was a difference in communication. I used one critical incident to illustrate the lines of communication / feedback time. The following clips show that whenever a creative decision was being made, when working with Nicole, we would pause for her approval. In contrast, when working on my song, the session musicians and I were in constant dialogue, so I didn't have to pause for this approval.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's nice. This additional line of communication meant that there was more scope for misinterpreting the vision for the project. And although only slight, it caused a delay in feedback time, which slowed the dialogue and affected creativity. The final theme I found was a difference in comfort. This single critical incident shows the differences in the freedom participants felt to express their opinions. Here are some clips showing the session musicians' level of comfort affecting how they express themselves.
I like being completely immersed in it, and it sounds weird in this room.
Okay.
Could I wear headphones?
Yeah.
So much more pressure now.
During their interviews, the session musicians relayed how they often felt less daunted and more comfortable during the sessions with a single artist/producer. The absence of hierarchy meant that there was more equal dialogue between the musicians and the artist. They felt more empathized with, so they were more comfortable voicing their opinions. My findings suggest that the less hierarchy there is during a collaborative production process, the more comfortable and engaged in dialogue the participants are. Meanwhile, fewer lines of communication increased comfort and the chances of accurate interpretation of the project's vision. To bring the study into practice, here are some suggestions producers can use. Minimize hierarchy, instead encourage creative collaboration. Minimize the lines of communication. Encourage open, clear communication from all parties. Create a safe and comfortable environment tailored to the artist and musicians. These findings all intertwine to grasp the nuances between producing oneself and others. Using these suggestions into both contexts will hopefully provide useful to producers to enhance their production sessions. Thank you for watching.